Please welcome to the stage CJ's Director of Product Development, Angela Ballard.
Hi, everyone. Thank you guys so much for being here today. I'm Angela Ballard, Director of Product here at CJ, and I've been with CJ a little over 10 years. Here I oversee the development and strategy for our tracking solutions, as well as our solutions for attribution, commissioning, and data privacy. I'm so excited to be here today speaking with Sam White, who is Head of AdTech Platforms Business Development at LiveRamp. And we're going to bring Sam up on the stage to introduce himself further in just a few minutes. LiveRamp are industry leaders in the identity resolution space, and we're partnering with them to bring all of you cross-device attribution and identity resolution solutions. With LiveRamp as our strategic partners, we're also creating more opportunities for customer-specific analysis and personalization. Sam is here today to talk to you all about how LiveRamp have created new and better solutions for identity resolution in a world without traditional identifiers like third-party cookies, mobile ad IDs, and IP addresses. LiveRamp have seen tremendous adoption of their solution, so I'm really, really excited that Sam gets to share all of that with you today. However, before we bring Sam up onto the stage, I want to talk a little bit more about what you can expect from the rest of our session today. And I'm going to pause and say that if you have questions while we're going through this content, we will have time for Q&A at the end. So go into the app, type your questions in, and Sam and I will be able to answer them for you. So in the last 5 or 6 years, we've seen these really big changes in web and mobile platform technology that have pretty dramatically changed the way that ad tech companies and analytics companies are able to operate their technologies in those environments. And these changes have been largely focused around restricting our access to traditional IDs like third-party cookies and mobile ad IDs. So what we're going to be talking about today is what these changes have impacted, which is really focused around our ability to identify consumers on the web. We're going to talk about what is coming next and why all of that should matter to everybody in this room. And then Sam is going to share how LiveRamp have built identity resolution solutions leveraging first-party data and how they've created new and better opportunities for their clients to reach consumers and measure performance. Then I'll talk about CJ's suite of solutions that also leverage first-party data and our partnership with LiveRamp. We've been solving for attribution and measurement in browsers that have been restricting these traditional identifiers with advertiser-focused solutions up to this point, but now we need our publishers to start making changes to their tracking and technology strategies. Publisher adoption of the solutions that Sam and I are going to be speaking about today is going to be critical to all of our success in the next couple of years, and it's going to create a ton of opportunity for growth, new partnerships, and improved measurement. So some of you may have seen this graphic before. It's from an eMarketer report. And what it's showing here are all of the sort of major announcements and policy rollouts that have come from regulatory bodies, web browsers, and mobile platforms that have been focused on restricting access to those traditional IDs. And they've also been focused on limiting cross-site tracking and providing consumers with more transparency around cross-site tracking. You'll see Apple's logo appear a few times. These are different features that they rolled out in their Safari ITP solution, as well as the introduction of their app tracking transparency framework. So in 2020, Google announced that they are going to follow suit behind Safari and Firefox, and they are going to completely deprecate the third-party cookie in their Chrome browser. This will be the most sweeping change that we've seen so far, and their timing for this has shifted a few times. It changed while I was building this content for CJU. But they are targeting 2024 for this change. And I will say the reason their timeline is shifting is they're trying to give companies more time to test their alternate solutions, which we definitely appreciate. But the thing to keep in mind is that the deprecation of the third-party cookie has already happened in other browsers, right? And what all these changes have done is they've pushed really everyone in the digital space to shift the way they use data for things like understanding customer behavior and measuring performance. And that shift has been toward using first-party data, which is data that's owned by the brands and publishers, to do things that we would have traditionally done with the more traditional identifiers like third-party cookies and mobile ad IDs. And what all of that really has changed is it's changed how we measure performance, right? So the industry is clearly moving in this direction. It's not turning around, which means that using first-party data for performance measurement is going to be our path forward. And when we talk about what it means to have restricted access to traditional IDs, what we're really saying is that without first-party data solutions in place, we're no longer able to see that complete customer journey. So in the affiliate channel, what that means is when somebody clicks a link and they buy something, we can't tie those two events together anymore. We can't say, oh, these were the same person, which means we also can't pay publisher commissions. But of course, we've solved for this, right? This happened in Safari in 2017. So we've done that with advertiser first-party data solutions, which is why we are capturing customer journeys and paying publisher commissions in these browsers. Now, though, we have this opportunity to do more and layer in that publisher first-party data, which is going to make these customer identities more accurate and more persistent. And persistent and accurate customer identities are going to be critical to being able to see customer behavior, do accurate attribution, enable cross-device tracking, and overall have improved measurement. And we all know that measurement is the key to accountability, right? Everyone in this room, you're accountable to the budgets you spend and the outcomes that you achieve. And this channel, the affiliate channel, is really driven by and built on accountability because we as networks, you as publishers, you have to prove the outcomes before you can get paid and make money. So this focus on measurement is also increasing in the digital space. And a Merkle study done in 2022 found that 64% of respondents are focusing more on measurement and analytics in the last 3 months than they were previously year over year, which totally makes sense, right? However, all of the changes that are coming out of these mobile platforms and web browsers, they've been happening for years, and we've been preparing for them, and businesses have been adapting their strategies. A study done in 2020, for instance, asked agencies and marketers how they're preparing and solving for identity resolution in a world without third-party cookies. And 65% of them said that they are relying more heavily on identity graphs that leverage first-party data. At CJ and identity resolution leaders like LiveRamp, we have solutions that leverage first-party data that will allow you to continue measuring performance as these traditional IDs become more and more restricted. What we need now is we need all of you to continue on your path to using them. So I read this line in an eMarketer report, and I really, really liked it because I felt like it captured the approach that we're taking here at CJ. It says, thanks to privacy-related changes, the emphasis on first-party data has never been greater. But even for brands with a lot of it, first-party data isn't a panacea. Partnerships are typically needed in some form, and underlying it all, a strategy. The nature of being an affiliate network, a network of partnerships, has created this incredible opportunity for us to build solutions that can leverage the scale of our network. And this is a really, really important thing to understand about first-party data identity solutions, is that they work better at scale when everybody is using them. The more people and more companies like all of you that are contributing to first-party identity graphs makes those customer identities more accurate and more persistent. So that's why the publisher adoption is going to be so important. Okay, so we've protected our ability to do measurement in these browsers like Safari, right? But the reality is that 63% of global web users, and this is desktop and mobile web, are using the Chrome browser, and these are users not on iOS devices, right? So 63% of users are still operating in an environment where third-party cookies exist today. So what all of that means is we need to prepare ourselves before Chrome makes these sweeping cookie changes. And it's really, really important that we do that because we do see transactions in Chrome today and publisher commissions that are paid today solely because we had a third-party cookie on that browser. We need to be able to continue measuring that performance and paying those publisher commissions when the third-party cookie is gone. We also know that there are other factors that exist today outside of Chrome that impact our ability to see that complete customer journey when we don't have first-party data solutions in place. These are things like ad blockers, ISPs blocking trackers, and even just improving accuracy of things like Safari's ITP, which our data shows us has gotten significantly more accurate in the last 3 years. With so many users on Chrome, these cookie changes are going to impact us. Publisher first-party data solutions that work with our advertiser solutions and our partnership with LiveRamp are going to be the critical factor that allow us to weather these changes and come out better on the other side. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Sam to talk more about LiveRamp and their first-party data solutions.
Thank you, and thanks for having me on stage to talk about this really important topic today. So I'm Sam. I work at LiveRamp, leading our ad tech strategy and partnerships for addressability. And like Angela mentioned, we see this issue of signal deprecation as a really pressing and imminent issue that a lot of publishers, marketers, and platforms have an immediate opportunity to solve. So in light of the changes that Google announced, their timeline to the cookie deprecation in Chrome, we've kind of gone back to why are publishers seeking a way to address and measure consumers? Why are marketers seeking a way to address and measure consumers and their media without third-party cookies? And what we found is it's really not just because Google is making those changes to Chrome. We're seeing this trend and the spirit of the trend away from third-party cookies as a broad sentiment that's really driven by consumer trust. So when we think about why cookies are going away in Chrome, it's because publishers largely have lost the trust of the consumer, and that there's a really significant incentive to rebuild that trust by focusing on those first-party relationships. That's also why we've seen Apple remove the IDFA from in-app channels. It's why we've seen the IP address start to be removed from CTV and from Chrome with Google's Gnatcatcher. And the overarching theme here is that it's not just Chrome that are removing these channels, causing the issues that Angela mentioned before, preventing the ability to connect the visit to the site, connect the transaction to the affiliate network. It's all of these channels deprecating some signal. And so what we're suggesting is that as brands and publishers lose this audience data connectivity, there's actually a better set of options on the table to connect data at a higher fidelity across all channels in a more consistent and persistent way than cookies or mobile ad IDs ever really supported. And that's because cookies and mobile device IDs were never intended to serve these purposes, right? They were never really intended to do more than remember your password when you came back to a site. So the opportunity here is across all these channels in a unified way to come up with a better way to address and measure media. And I think that's what we've started to do here. So let's start with first-party data. Why are we focusing so much on this? It starts with that trust, that initial loyalty program that a brand is going to launch and build to collect the advertiser first-party data in their CRM, the publishers setting up incentives to log in. This doesn't have to be a hard authentication wall. It can be an email sign-up. It can be small prompts that build the audience for the publisher and create additional engagement, but also create that greater connectivity. So where third-party cookies have historically been the connective tissue between different platforms, this first-party data is serving as our superior connective tissue that's doing a better job to address and measure media. So we'll talk a bit about how that works and what results we've seen by making this shift from third-party cookies to first-party data identity solutions. So I'll talk a bit about what we've tested and what we've rolled out to thousands of publishers, and that's our authenticated traffic solution. So authenticated traffic solution, or ATS, is a way, and it's a suite of APIs that lets publishers and marketers connect their first-party data at scale without the use or dependence on third-party cookies. That typically starts with a login event like this, where let's say I log into a publisher's site to read a news article, and from there, my identity is pseudonymized. It's kept obscured and it's not shared to many partners, but we're looking up that user's email or phone number in our graph and deleting the email. From there, my identity can be used to power consistent experiences across all channels and connect that publisher's inventory without third-party cookies to marketer demand. So that delivers enhanced security. It helps the publisher deliver on the promise of trust. They're not sharing the user's email or personal information throughout the programmatic ecosystem or to marketers. They're only using the critical identity signal from that user or site visitor to make their media experience consistent, addressable, and measurable. So this is something we've rolled out across CTV, across mobile, across web, and it's shown some really substantial results in favor of higher CPMs, better return on ad spend for marketers, and probably most importantly for this discussion, 100% measurability. Every impression addressed is measurable on the ramp ID, the identifier that's being passed through the solution. So let's talk about how that works and then connect back to the results we've seen, making some of the changes that Angela started advocating at the beginning of the presentation. So taking an example of a publisher's site, let's say that I visit that site, I log in. It could be a soft authentication wall, like signing up for a special offer or a mailing list. My email would then be looked up against LiveRamp's identity graph, and we've enabled all of the key platforms along the programmatic chain to work off of the same definition of identity. So let's think about third-party cookie world, how this would look. We'd have a different cookie space for the DSP, a different cookie space for the SSP, the ad server, the DSP, and the SSP all speaking different languages, and hopefully a small sliver of the publisher's audience making the connection to the marketer at the end of the chain. Instead, in this case, we have the same identifier, the same definition of a person being used not only across mobile, CTV, and display, but also in every single platform, but encoded uniquely for them to protect the user's security and privacy around their identity. So that's leading to higher match rates, it's leading to greater measurability, and critically, in this context, it's leading to greater provability of outcomes. When every media experience addressed is fully measurable, we're able to tie the retailer's transaction data more consistently to the ad exposure because we're using that same consistent definition of a person throughout the chain. That's not subject to Safari's ID deletion. It's not subject to ITP or Chrome because we're not using a cookie. We're using the ramp ID, which is that definition of a person consistent for all of these different channels. So thinking about what that provides for the marketer, that means across each of these different channels, whether they're using an in-house measurement platform or a third-party measurement platform, or through an affiliate network proving that outcomes came from these ad exposures, they're able to tie return on ad spend directly to their investment. This is something that we've seen the walled gardens do extremely well over the past 10 years, and I think it's why we've seen them bring a lot more spend into social. It's because they can produce this report that says, here's how well the media spend did. Here are the results that we directly produced through their conversions APIs, through their various other features that provide direct addressability and measurability. So I think what we're really proving here, and we've done so with thousands of marketer campaigns, tens of thousands of publisher domains, is that the open web and affiliate networks and elsewhere can provide the same sort of direct addressability and measurability. And by leaning into that use of first-party data to make that proof to the marketer, we're able to recapture a lot of the social platform spend that is really only going towards these outcome-based buys. The other benefit of working off of a non-cookie solution for identity primarily is that historically, cookie syncs have required us to do different things in every market. We've had to set up different publisher match networks in order to sync cookies in South America compared to Europe, compared to North America. But when we're operating off of a consistent version of identity that's based in the first-party data of the user, the publisher, and the marketer, that's a framework that's applicable globally. So we've launched this solution in dozens of markets across South America, North America, Europe, Asia Pacific. And we're going into over 100 markets by the end of next year. So let's talk about what those results are that we've seen from taking this approach. When we're losing less data throughout the chain in addressability, we're able to provide higher CPMs to publishers. That's not necessarily higher CPMs that the marketer is charged with, but rather higher CPMs that the publisher is able to accrue when they can apply identity at a more consistent rate to more impressions and connect that identity to the identity in a marketer audience. So we've seen that consistently for Microsoft. In channels like Safari and Firefox, where we lack identity today, there's this CPM benefit even greater. For Newsweek, they saw a much higher effective CPM. They saw improved CPMs for mobile devices in particular, and we're continuing to see this in iOS and other environments where device identifiers are becoming more scarce. And thinking about the marketer side, the benefit is also there. At relatively similar CPMs to what they're paying when they can find an addressable impression with a cookie, they're able to prove that these outcomes came directly from their media buy. So in this case, a direct-to-consumer flower retailer was able to find that by comparing third-party cookie-based media buys to addressable RAMP ID media buys, they can generate 84% higher return on ad spend. And so part of that is coming from the ability to show that the transaction occurred for the same person as the ad exposure, but part of it is also that we're losing less data throughout the chain, and we're able to frequency cap on a person level. So I'm not seeing the same ad for a set of flowers on my phone as my tablet, as my desktop, viewed as 3 different people. My family is frequency capped consistently, and that's really limiting overexposure. And all of these impressions are tied directly to outcomes. So again, more evidence of this trend. We're seeing improvements in in-store visits, all of this trackable because every impression bought on RAMP ID is measurable on RAMP ID. So just to wrap things up and transfer the conversation back to Angela, why are we seeing publishers and marketers choose to coordinate in this way? They're choosing to coordinate based on their first-party data because they're seeing better return on ad spend, they're seeing better reach, they're able to find their customers more consistently, and they're more efficiently buying and measuring media. And we think that's a really important transition for them to make as they move away from the third-party cookie, the IP address, the mobile ad ID solutions that have historically powered the marketing ecosystem, but are rapidly becoming obsolete. So thanks, and I'm going to transition it back to Angela.
Thank you. Thank you, Sam. Sorry, I'm going to not block the screen here. The results that you just shared with us really are a testament to the importance of solutions like this. And as we've been speaking with LiveRamp over the last couple of years, watching ATS adoption grow has given us at CJ so much confidence around the strategic guidance that we're giving our clients and the approach that we're taking with our own solutions. So I want to talk a little bit more about CJ's solutions and what we're asking our advertisers and our publishers to do. And I will focus a little bit more on our publisher solutions today just because we've talked about the advertiser solutions at past CJUs. But first, we have, of course, our LiveRamp partnership, which is bringing all of you cross-device attribution and more opportunities for customer-specific analysis and personalization. And we have our advertiser first-party data solutions like the universal tag and cookieless tracking, which have driven our success to maintaining tracking, attribution, and measurement in browsers that restrict traditional identifiers. These solutions also enable tracking in our mobile app environments. And now we have the CJ Publisher Tag, which is our newest solution and our first publisher-facing solution that's focused on tracking integrity and resiliency. The Publisher Tag is a first-party integration for publishers, and it lurks alongside our advertiser integrations to maintain that tracking, attribution, and measurement in these browsers that we've been talking about today. The Publisher Tag is introducing a couple new key features, being the first-party ID and the bounceless tracking feature, and I'm going to talk about how both of those work. So I shared this slide earlier talking about how our advertiser first-party data integrations have preserved tracking and measurement in browsers like Safari. And now we have our Publisher Tag, which fits into this larger first-party data strategy and works with the advertiser solutions. So Our publisher tag creates a persistent first-party identifier for the consumer in the publisher's domain. And when the advertiser has our universal tag integrated, we also create a persistent first-party identifier for that consumer. And we're able to link these two IDs together and create customer journeys solely based on having these IDs available to us and without relying on third-party cookies. The publisher tag also creates a bounceless navigation experience for the consumer, taking them directly from the publisher website to the advertiser website without any tracking domain redirects in between. Both of these features work with the browser changes that we've been talking about today. And they also both require that the advertiser has a first-party data integration, which is how our publisher tag fits into the broader evolution of our tracking. The first-party ID and bounceless tracking also solve for tracking complexities and tracking concerns that we can't solve for with advertiser solutions alone. These are some of the things I mentioned earlier, like ad blockers, ISPs blocking trackers, and even just things like consumers clearing their cookies on certain websites. These are all things that interrupt our visibility into the customer journey and can be solved for with these two solutions working together. So by having this holistic approach and a suite of solutions that work on both the advertiser and publisher side, we're able to create more complete customer journeys, which gives us more opportunities for attribution and accurate measurement, which is, in this channel, means something very important, which is that we get to pay publishers accurately for the value that they drive. So with the adoption of our advertiser first-party data solutions, we've been able to weather the loss of third-party cookies in browsers like Safari and Firefox. We've been able to improve measurement and rebuild those customer journeys that were broken by tracking restrictions like Safari's ITP. And we need to keep moving in this direction. We need all of our advertisers to use these solutions. The publisher tag will take these benefits to a new level by working with the advertiser solutions. We're going to see more accurate attribution and commission payouts to publishers in browsers where traditional identifiers are restricted today. We'll be able to better measure total performance with increased visibility into the customer journey, which also creates more opportunities to optimize. And we'll be able to see a fuller picture of the total value publishers drive, which creates stronger relationships with those brands you choose to partner with. The affiliate channel is built on the ability to pay for performance, but we can only do that if we have full visibility into the customer journey. First-party data solutions like our publisher tag, our universal tag, and our partnership with LiveRamp are going to move this channel forward to even greater success. So affiliate is the channel of choice for driving clear and measurable outcomes, and that's because the publishers in this channel are really, really good at it. But you need a technology strategy that supports those efforts, right? All of the time and effort and money that you spend on creating effective campaigns only goes further when you can accurately measure the results. Using first-party data for measurement has become the industry norm in digital marketing. And the amount of success that LiveRamp have seen with their solutions just proves this point, right? Using first-party data for measurement is going to be the path forward. And these solutions, first-party data identity solutions, work better at scale, which means all of you need to use them in order to make them better for everybody. At CJ, we've been focused for the last many, many years now on making tracking and identity solutions that work now and will continue to work as this ecosystem evolves. And we're partnering with experts like LiveRamp to expand the opportunities that you have in this channel. So if you haven't started down your path of using first-party data as part of your marketing and measurement strategy, now is the time to do that. And we're here to work with you. Thank you all so much. And bring Sam back up for Q&A. All right. Do we get any questions? Okay. Cool.
All right.
Okay.
Sam and Angela, thank you. There's two ways you can ask questions, by the way. You don't need to enter it into the app. We have a microphone we can toss out to you, but I'll first read off the one that came through the app. And the question is, how do you handle traffic from things like 12feet.io, I think I got that right, that allows consumers to bypass login walls?
Could you repeat the
How do you
name
handle
of
traffic from things like 12feet.io?
I think what we've found is that the approaches to blocking ads and very specific measures to siphon off traffic or obscure identity deliberately are really scarcely adopted. The vast majority of site traffic on all sites has this default setting of the browser. In Safari, it doesn't have a third-party cookie. In Firefox, it doesn't have a third-party cookie. In Android, there's a made. In Chrome, there's a cookie. And in Apple, there's no IDFA. So when we look at these edge cases, that hasn't really been where our focus is. I think that the focus is on the majority of the traffic where the majority of the impressions and the conversions happen. These edge cases are worth thinking about, but with ad blockers, I'm not too familiar with the exact solution that the question mentions, but they tend to be a minor and small set of cases.
All right. Oh, there is a question in the back. This is perfect for using the cube. Gianna?
You can toss it. Yeah. Hi. I actually have two questions, possibly. First being, you talked about having insight into the customer journey, and I was curious who actually gets to use that as a publisher. For example, Staples comes to me and says, I want to target new to file only, but I have insight into my users and not anybody else. So would Staples then be able to provide me a target list of new to file that I can then try and promote to?
Sure, that's a great question. That is, I will say, that use case totally makes sense, right? And the visibility that the advertisers can provide to CJ today around the type of customer that they have comes at the point of transaction. So that, I will say, that is not something that we support in our platform as far as giving advertisers a way to share audience data with publishers. It's certainly something that we could consider exploring, but it's not something that we've explored up to this point.
So that is a big part of our business, is taking an onboarder's first-party audience and making it addressable on publishers' inventory, either directly or as the overlap, I think like you're mentioning, of the publisher's similar segment or a completely different segment. So often that takes the form of the marketer syndicating that audience to the DSP, and they're bidding against your inventory that you've made available. But ATS also is compatible with your ad server directly and you overlapping your own segment primarily and just taking the subset of that is in the marketer's, say, lapsed purchaser audience.
And is that all through CJ then?
Not necessarily, but
okay.
You could still use the affiliate network in tandem.
Okay, my other question is if you can talk a little bit more about the in-store experience. You mentioned in-store ramp ID, and I'm curious if I visit Expedia and log in online and then I walk into a Staples store, how do you know I'm the same person?
Yeah, so that was a case study where we took a set of ad exposures from a campaign meant to drive in-store visits. So we have a ramp ID for every exposure because it was bid on in the DSP. The SSP sent the DSP an impression. So the auction happened with a ramp ID. And then the retailer sent us a file of all of their visitors from that month. And so this is not merging together the personal data of all these people, but it's taking the signal from their identity and matching it on a ramp ID to prove that every single impression, if it had a connection to an in-store visit, is attributable there. So it was a measurement analysis done using that methodology.
Oh, my water polo days. You mentioned a lot around logging in, and obviously we don't live in a fully walled garden universe. Do you use other metrics to actually make that identification, or in the future with Chrome, because you log into Chrome, then you'll know who the person is?
Yeah, so I think of this question, we hear this a lot in two ways. One is that while cookies, mobile ad IDs, and other identifiers exist, we'll still use them in our partnership and elsewhere to support the addressability and measurability. So it's not an either or, it's an all of the above. And the second is that as we move away from those identifiers, I think there's a tendency to bias towards solutions that have the same match rates on cookieless identifiers alone as through cookies. And often that's done by concatenating or bringing together the IP address and the user agent and all these other signals.
Yeah.
We see that straying into a version of fingerprinting that's probably not going to be supported by the browsers in the long term. So anything that's doing that is likely to come under more regulatory and platform scrutiny. However, while cookies and maids exist, both the email address and also we use the phone number, or it could be the city, state, zip. We have an offline graph for name and postal data. That's how we do a lot of the cross-device tracking where we partner with CJ. That's also an option. So often it's that the retailer has city, state, name, zip, and that's in their CRM, and then the publisher has email, and through our graph, we're able to make that connection.
And what about, like, I have 4 or 5 different email addresses?
Yeah, that's another really important reason to have a graph underlying the connection of first-party data. Because we're not just taking one email, and then let's say you have your college email or your work email on the other side in the marketer CRM, and shoving them together and hoping they match. Instead, you're looking them both up in an identity graph. In our case, it's based off of 40 years of offline data. It's an owned asset, and we're spitting back a RAMP ID that is you as a person, not just you as one of your emails.
Sure. Cool. I'm not throwing it.
Any more questions? Anyone else who wants to have the cube thrown at them? Come on. All right. Well, then, with that, why don't we give a big, warm thank you to Sam and Angela.
Thank you.